Ma'am, NYPD. We got a tip about stolen property coming through this address. I need to step in and take a look around.
Good morning, officer. Unless you have a warrant signed by a judge, you don't have consent to enter my home.
It's just a quick check. Anonymous tip.
Anonymous tips don't erase the Fourth Amendment. If you believe a crime's occurring, get the paperwork. I'll wait.
The white cop shoved his boot into the doorway and told the black woman, "Step aside or I'll drag you out in cuffs." She stood there in a loose gray sweatshirt and a silk head wrap, looking small, quiet, almost sleepy. Neighbors watched from their windows, body cams blinked red. The cop laughed and said, "You people always think you know the law." What he didn't know, what nobody there knew, was that the woman he was threatening had taken down police departments in federal court, and was about to do it again, and this time it would happen right on her front steps. Before we jump in, take 1 second to subscribe to this channel because stories like this need to be told, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now, let's go. "Ma'am, I'm not asking again." Officer Ryan McAllister's voice cut through the early morning air like a blade. Sure. Loud. Trained to scare. The sun was barely up. Brooklyn streets were still quiet. Garbage trucks hadn't come yet. A coffee shop down the block was just pulling up its metal gate. Imani Caldwell stood barefoot on the cold stone steps of her brownstone. One hand rested on the door. The other held nothing. No phone. No bag. No weapon. Just her calm. "I'm asking you to remove your foot from my doorway," she said. Her voice was low, flat, tired but steady. "And to show me the warrant you claim to have." McAllister smirked. Behind him, 2 other officers shifted their weight. One glanced up and down the block. Another adjusted his vest. All 3 wore the same look, tight jaws, narrowed eyes, ready for trouble. "You don't get to tell us how this works," McAllister said. "We got a tip. Stolen property. That gives us the right to search." "That is not how the Fourth Amendment works," Imani replied. McAllister laughed. A short, ugly sound. "Oh, here we go," he said loudly, making sure the neighbors could hear. Another one who went to Google Law School. A few windows across the street slid open. Someone lifted a phone. Imani felt the familiar heat in her chest. Not fear. Not anger. Memory. From the outside, Imani Caldwell did not look like power. She was 42 years old. Tall but soft around the edges. Her sweatshirt was faded from too many washes. The head wrap was silk but plain, tied fast because she had woken up 5 minutes earlier to the sound of fists slamming against her door. She did not wear makeup. She did not wear jewelry. She did not raise her voice. People like Officer McAllister saw women like her every day and thought they understood them. Single. Defensive. Difficult. Wrong. Imani had argued cases in rooms where silence itself felt heavy. She had stood before judges whose names were printed in history books. She had watched grown men with guns shake when the law turned against them. But she did not announce those things. She never did. Her mother had taught her that real strength did not bark. It waited. "I'm going to ask one more time," Imani said. "Do you have a warrant?" McAllister leaned in closer. Too close. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice in a fake calm that felt like a threat. "I don't know who you think you are, but you don't get special treatment. You keep blocking us, that's obstruction." The word hung in the air. Obstruction. Imani felt it then, the old, deep hurt. The one she carried since law school. Since being mistaken for cleaning staff. Since being told she was articulate. Since being followed in stores. Since being black. She looked past McAllister at the quiet street. At the brick buildings. At the city she loved and fought for every day. "I am standing in my own home," she said. "You are the one obstructing my rights." McAllister straightened up and turned to the small crowd forming across the street. "You hearing this?" he said, shaking his head. "This is what we deal with." One of the officers behind him snorted. "Always got an attitude," he muttered. Imani heard it. She always did. McAllister tapped his body cam, making sure it was recording. "For the record," he said loudly, "the occupant is refusing to comply." "I am refusing an illegal search," Imani replied. McAllister stepped fully into the doorway now. His boot crossed the line. That was when something changed. Imani's eyes lifted. Not wide. Not scared. Focused. "Officer," she said, "step back. You are violating New York Penal Law Section 140.05. Criminal trespass." McAllister froze for half a second. Then he laughed again, louder this time. "You threatening me now?" he said. "You think throwing numbers at me makes you smart?" One of the neighbors gasped softly. Another started filming openly. Imani did not move. "Do you know what Peyton v. New York is?" she asked calmly. McAllister's smile flickered. Do you know what Kylo versus United States established? She continued. Or Florida versus Jardines? Silence. The other officers exchanged looks. Imani stepped forward just enough to reclaim her doorway. You cannot enter my home without a warrant, she said. Not on a tip. Not on a guess. Not because you feel like it. McAllister's face flushed red. Lady, he snapped, you are this close to being arrested. For what? Imani asked. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. A siren wailed somewhere far away. McAllister reached for his radio, then stopped. He looked unsure now. Angry. Cornered. Who do you think you are? He demanded. Imani took a slow breath. She had not planned to say it yet. But she could feel the moment tightening, like a knot pulled too far. My name is Imani Caldwell, she said. And I am currently lead counsel on Caldwell versus City of New York. McAllister frowned. The second officer's eyes widened. That case, Imani continued, is a federal civil rights lawsuit against the NYPD. It challenges unlawful searches based on anonymous tips. The street went quiet. I will ask you one final time, she said. Step away from my door. And call your supervisor. McAllister swallowed. For the first time since he arrived, he looked small. The radio on McAllister's shoulder crackled to life. Supervisor en route, a voice said. Imani stepped back into her doorway, but did not close the door. She stood there, calm and unshaken, as the power in the street slowly began to shift. And this was only the beginning. The supervisor arrived 10 minutes later. 10 long minutes. That was how long Officer Ryan McAllister stood on the sidewalk, pretending not to feel the eyes burning into his back. The street was no longer quiet. People had come out. A delivery driver stopped his truck and leaned on the hood. A woman across the street held her phone high, recording everything. Someone whispered, "That cop messed up." Imani Caldwell stayed in her doorway. She did not smile, she did not gloat, she did not say another word. She simply waited. The supervisor's car pulled up fast, brakes squealing a little too hard. Lieutenant Arthur Bell stepped out. White. Late 50s. Gray hair cut neat. He had the look of a man who had survived too many messes by knowing when to shut things down. He took one look at the scene. Then he sighed. McAllister, Bell said. What's going on? McAllister straightened like a kid caught lying. Sir, we received an anonymous tip about stolen property at this address. The occupant refused to cooperate. Bell's eyes shifted to Imani. Something in his face changed. Not fear. Recognition. Ma'am, Bell said slowly. Are you Imani Caldwell? Imani nodded once. Yes. The street reacted before McAllister could. A sharp breath at a low, oh damn. Phones zoomed in. McAllister turned. Sir? Bell closed his eyes for half a second. Then he rubbed his forehead. Officer, Bell said quietly, step away from the door. McAllister hesitated. Now, Bell snapped. McAllister stepped back. The power left him in that moment. You could see it drain from his shoulders. From his voice. From the way he stood. Bell walked closer to Imani, keeping his distance. Miss Caldwell, he said, I apologize for the disturbance. Imani looked at him. You are apologizing for more than a disturbance, she said. Bell nodded. Yes, I am. Bell turned back to his officers. Do any of you have a warrant? He asked. Silence. Do you have probable cause beyond an anonymous tip? He asked. Still silence. Bell looked at McAllister. Did you put your foot in her doorway? Bell asked. McAllister's mouth opened, then closed. Bell exhaled through his nose. Officer McAllister, he said loud enough for everyone to hear, you violated department policy. And possibly the Constitution. McAllister's face went pale. Sir, You're done speaking, Bell said. Turn off your body cam. McAllister froze. Turn it off, Bell repeated. McAllister obeyed. Bell turned to the crowd. This interaction is over, he said. Everyone can go back to their day. Nobody moved. Bell knew why. Imani stepped forward. Lieutenant, she said, I would like all officers to clear my property. Bell nodded. Of course. He turned sharply. Clear out. Now. The officers backed away. McAllister was last. As he stepped back, Imani spoke. Officer, she said. He stopped. She met his eyes. You laughed when I spoke the law, she said. Remember that feeling. McAllister said nothing. He could not. The police cars pulled away. The street stayed quiet. For a moment, nobody knew what to do. Then someone clapped. One clap, then another, then many. Imani did not bow. She did not wave. She simply closed her eyes for a second. The weight hit her then. Not victory. Exhaustion. She had won fights like this before. In courtrooms. On paper. In rulings and settlements. But this one had happened at her door. In her robe. Before coffee. Before armor. A young woman crossed the street. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I should have said something sooner." Imani smiled gently. "You said something now," she replied. "That matters." Inside her home, the quiet wrapped around her again. The smell of old wood. The soft light through tall windows. She sat at her kitchen table. Her phone buzzed. A text from her co-counsel. "Saw the live stream. You okay?" She typed back. "I am. This will help the case." She paused. Then added, "But it shouldn't have to." That afternoon, news vans came. Imani declined interviews. She did not want sound bites. She wanted change. By nightfall, the NYPD released a statement. An internal review. An officer placed on administrative leave. McAllister sat alone in his apartment, staring at nothing. For the first time, he replayed the moment not as power, but as shame. He had thought control was strength. He had been wrong. Weeks later, Caldwell versus City of New York expanded. More plaintiffs. More voices. More truth. Imani stood in federal court months after that morning. She wore a tailored suit now. Her hair free. Her voice steady. She won. Not because she was loud, but because she was right. That night, back on her stoop, Imani watched the city breathe. A neighbor waved. She waved back. She thought of something her mother once said. Never confuse silence with weakness. Some people are quiet because they are carrying the whole truth. Imani smiled and closed the door. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were standing on that street that morning? Your voice matters.